Welcome everyone. Thank you for giving us an hour of your time today to walk through the project tracker and specifically do some admin training for you all on how to use the project tracker. I've got a little bit of an agenda here today. Kristen may have shared this with you beforehand, but if not, it's not too much. I just wanted to say welcome, introduce the people here in the room at Sitka. And I've got a little bit of a PowerPoint presentation, but not too much, just to walk through the resources that are available to you as you continue to use your Project Firma project tracker. And then I want to spend the bulk of the time we have with you actually in the tool demoing how to do specific tasks. And I've got a list of ones we definitely want to cover, so how to manage a user's account, how to approve a proposal or pending project, how to approve an update. And if we've got time at the end, there's a whole other list of other how-tos we'd like to cover. We'll probably get through a few of those. Want to make sure to leave some time at the end for question and answers. So here at Sitka, so I'm Liz Christeleit. I'm the product owner for the project. I've been sort of walking through the configuration of Project Tracker with a select group from the steering committee over the last couple months. We also have Kathleen and Julia in the room, who are two analysts here at Sitka who have played a great role in preparing the documents that we're going to go over today and also setting up the project tracker. I do just want to point out before we go any further, I am recording this training video so that it will be available to you later. I don't want that to impede you from asking questions. So please, if you have questions, please still speak up. If you would feel more comfortable asking your questions in the chat, you can join this Zoom meeting and use the chat. Julia and Kathleen will look at that for any questions that are there as well. Okay, any questions before we get started? I think we're good. All right. All right, before I jump right into the resources that are available to you, I just want to be pretty clear that I've only got an hour with you all today, so I'm going to dive right into a lot of details. If you need a little bit more background information about how the project tracker works and how we've set it up, there are other training videos that we've put together that we recorded about a month ago with some of the partners. So those are available to get a little bit more background information. But this meeting today will be really in the details of your role as administrators. All right. So I've got a couple of slides here to go through just some of the resources that are available if you need help with the project tracker. And there's a lot of different things to talk about here. There's the in-system support, so the things that are actually in the project tracker. There's off-system support. I'll walk through a few documents that we've created either for other Project Firma users and specifically for the John Day Basin Partnership. I'll talk a bit about the Project Firma community and how you can use that as a resource. And then finally, talk a bit about Sitka's role going forward and how we can support you. So the in-system support, what I mean by this, I'm actually going to jump out of the PowerPoint for a moment and pull up the browser. So this is the John Day Basin Partnership Project Tracker website. And when I say in-system support, I mean what is actually built into the tool to help you use the tool. So there are a couple of things that I just want to point out here. And this will be a repeat of some things for those of you who were at the training in January. In the project tracker, there's a help menu over here on the far right. And within the help menu, there's a few different options. There's a tab called training. So if I click into that, this is where those training videos are stored. So if you're looking for specific information about how to manage your user account, this pretty short video, I think this is about 2 minutes long, will give you a nice overview of how to do that. And so there's a handful of training videos here about how to request support, how to add a project, updating a project. And we'll also, after this training today, cut these administrative videos and make those available to you as well. So that's one piece of the in-system support. Another thing that I wanted to point out about what's built into the tool to help you use it, I'm going to pull up another tab here. So here I'm looking at a project detail page. This is all of the information about the Upper John Day LiDAR project. And you'll see throughout all the pages within the Project Firma project tracker, there are these little question marks. And that little icon is a link that will get you help on what that specific term means. So in this case, for project type, if I click that, it has a little pop-up here that says, okay, project type is the type of project or actions that will ultimately lead to achieving goals associated with the partnership's priorities. All right, so that's just this built-in support about what does project stage mean. And those are all throughout all of the pages within the project tracker. If we have time later today, I'll show you that you as administrators of this system can edit those default definitions if there's specific information you want to add. So I'll show you how to do that. All right, the other thing I wanted to point out about in-system support, I'm going to need to log in to show you this part. Now that I'm logged in here, I have more access to other menu items, including a manage menu and a configure menu. I'm going to pull up just one specific page. And what I wanted to point out here is that on almost all of the pages on the manage and configure menu, which are just available to you as administrators, there's help text at the top of each page, which will sort of explain what this page means and what you can do. So that's the in-system support that I think will be helpful to you as you get in the project tracker and start using it. Any questions about that? The help menu or field definitions, page instructions? All right, I'm going to move on here. So there's only so much we can cram into the tool with all the instruction text and the field definition menus. So what we've learned as people have been using Project Firma is that there is a need for some external documentation about how some of this works. We've previously shared with you a customization guide that is all about setting up the project tracker from the ground up. So it's really documenting the decisions that need to be made to get the project tracker in the best usable state for your specific program. So that's what we've been working through over the last couple months, is how to customize the Project Firma application to fit for the John Day Basin partnership. That being said, there is a lot of information in that customization guide about how specific things work. So if you've got questions about something, the customization guide is a good resource for you. We're also putting together what we're calling an administrator's quick guide. And this is something we realized was necessary because once you finish the configuration of the Project Firma project tracker, there's still some management actions that you'll need to take to make sure things are running smoothly. So again, I'm going to jump out of the PowerPoint here and pull up a Word document. So this is a work in progress. We're putting our finishing touches on it. I need to do some final proofreading before we share it with you. But this is meant to be just like a 10-page, lots of images guide about how to do some specific things in the project tracker. And those include just defining what the roles are and how permissions work, an overview of all of the email notifications that are built into Project Firma, and then a couple common how-tos. So a lot of what's in this guide, I'll be doing live in a demo for you today, but others if you're someone who likes to read technical documentation to figure out how something works, this will hopefully be a good resource for you. Any questions about those two document resources? And we'll also make sure that those two documents are on that training page within the system as well, so you can quickly download them.
Customization guide should be there already.
Yes. Yeah, and Kathleen just said the customization guide is already linked in the training page, and the administrator quick guide will be linked there as well shortly. All right, I'm going to move on here. Another resource we want you to be aware of is the Project Firma user group community. So you've selected Project Firma as your project tracking system, and with that comes this really great resource of a bunch of different organizations and partnerships who are also using Project Firma. And we, Sitka, as the sort of the Project Firma development team, we host quarterly user group meetings and get people together from all different organizations to talk about new features in Project Firma, how specific things work, and then even just other larger topics that are of interest to this group of people, such as like, how do you manage your project updates? How do you get your project implementers to actually get in there and update their information? So it's a way to share best practices and get questions answered with those user group meetings. In addition to those formal meetings that we hold every quarter or so, I also want you to be aware that there's this whole group of community members, so like Carrie Stiles at the Puget Sound Partnership, Jean McNamara at Tahoe Regional Planning Agency, of really natural resource and conservation management professionals who have been doing these things for years, who are happy to talk with you about your program and how you're using Project Firma, and even outside of the technical project management piece about how you're doing conservation efforts. So that community is a really great group of people, and I do encourage you to reach out to people if you feel like you've got questions, or let me know and I'll put you in touch with someone who might be able to answer a question you have. In that same vein, we are working on a community forum to provide a place for folks to come together. I'm not sure what the timeline for that is. There will probably be more information about it at the Project Firma user group meeting, which is next week. Any questions about the Project Firma community? All right, I'm gonna move on here. Okay, so this is finally another resource as us here at Sitka, and specifically the Sitka staff and the Project Firma product manager, who right now is Matt Deniston, who's also a partner here at Sitka. So if you've exhausted your other resources, you've used the field definitions, looked at the administrator quick guide, and you still don't understand how something works, please feel free to reach out to us by using the request support form within the tool. And the reason I ask you to do that is because it will, when you submit that request support, it will go to our project team and the Project Firma product manager. So we'll make sure that the right person gets your request. In addition to being there to answer the questions, we also want to hear from you. So if you have ideas about new features, or you think you've encountered a bug, or you're having some success or some challenges, we definitely want to hear about those, because that's what keeps this Project Firma community vibrant and gives us the opportunity to put things on the product backlog. And then we'll track those things across not just the John Day Basin Partnership, but also the Clackamas Partnership and the Puget Sound Partnership, and find areas where there's a common need within the system and make sure we're building out the Project Firma system to work for the most people. Any questions about that? All right, you all are too easy. All right, I'm gonna jump out of PowerPoint here and pull up the project tracker. close this page. All right. The first thing I want to walk through about a how-to for administrators is how to manage a user's account. This is really important to keep the system running smoothly and making sure that the right people have the right permissions in the tool. So when a new user logs into the project tracker, administrators that are set up to receive notifications will get an email that there's a new user in the system. And that email will have a link to a user's page to set them up with the right permissions. When a person first logs in, when they haven't been there before, their role is automatically assigned to unassigned, which means they have a login and their name will be shown up here, but they won't have any permissions to do anything other than what a public user could do. So if someone logs in that you know needs to be able to enter projects, you're going to want to come into the project tracker and assign them a role. So from the Manage menu, you select the Users item. So this page shows a list of all of the people who have accounts who have logged into the John Day Basin Partnership Project Tracker. The columns include this role over here. So I pull this up, scroll over just a bit here.
You can make the columns skinnier too by dragging.
Thank you, Kathleen. So for example, there are a number of users, or just two here, users who have that role unassigned. So just before I go forward anymore, I want to point out that I'm here on the QA site. So this is a test environment. So I'm going to make some changes, but it won't affect the actual project tracker. So let's say Mitch Daniel has logged in. He has the role of unassigned. So if I select Mitch from the list, now I'm looking at Mitch's page in the project tracker. And there's an edit button here to edit the roles. If I pull that up, I've got the option to assign Mitch to a different role here. The roles are defined in that, both in the customization guide, but more thoroughly in the administrator quick guide that we're going to give you. So I'm not going to go over specifically what all of the roles mean here, but I'll point you towards that resource. I'm going to set Mitch as a normal user. I want to point out this should receive support emails really quick. This sets up whether a user should receive an email like when someone new logs in, or when an update is submitted, or when a project is submitted. In most cases, normal users, that will always be checked to no. But for administrators, you'll probably want to check that to yes to make sure that administrative users are getting those email notifications. Okay, so I'll go ahead and save that. And so now Mitch has a role there. All of the other information about a user's account is managed within the Keystone Identity Manager. So you can't actually change the username or email here in the project tracker. That all is edited in the Keystone Identity Manager, which is linked right here. If I go back to the user list, I want to point out one other handy feature. You can use this invite user tool here to preload a person into the project tracker. So this is handy if there are people that you know need to be entering projects, like members of the partnership, and they don't have an account yet. You can enter their name, their email, their organization. I'm going to create a test. I'm going to enter Kathleen. And Kathleen's email is some email, and Kathleen has an organization that is Sitka Technology Group. So once I press invite, the system is going to create an account for Kathleen and send an email to Kathleen's email address, which is a fake email address right here, with instructions on how to set up an account. The reason you might want to do this is because even without Kathleen as a new user having logged in here, you can set that role assignment before she even logs in, so that the first time she logs in, she's ready to go. You don't have to come back and change the user permissions. Any questions about how to manage users?
Yeah, I have one question. Can you assign an organization to someone? Like I'm in there and I see one of our staff doesn't have the organization listed. Is there a way to assign that?
So the organization, here, let me pull up my page here.
So, yeah.
Yeah, so the organization affiliation is actually set up within Keystone. So you can ask folks to edit their information within Keystone and select their organization there. And then the next time they log into the project tracker, their organization will be updated. There is.
So,
yep.
so if you click on, well, I guess I don't know if we need to, Carmen, when I go into Keystone, it shows the organization, but it doesn't show it in the project tracker.
So whose name was that? Sorry, who's repeating?
Carmen Leguizamon.
Okay, so this is a little technical. If you ask Carmen to log out and log back in, on that login is when it's going to pull that information from Keystone.
Okay. So maybe she hasn't logged out?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
she last logged in on January 21st. It seems like she's logged in but hasn't logged out or logged in again to pull that information over.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks for the question. All right, I'm going to move on to how to approve a proposal or pending project. So in the user account management, I mentioned that receives support emails. So when a new proposal is submitted or a new project is entered, an admin will receive an email that there is a project ready to review if they're subscribed to email notifications. That email will contain a direct link to the proposal or the pending project, so you can use that to navigate to the new project record that needs to be reviewed. You can also use the navigation just within the project tracker. So under the projects tab here, there's a page specifically for proposals and then another page for pending projects. And I'll just give a really brief update or an overview of what the difference between a proposal and a pending project is. A proposal is something that hasn't started yet. It's a complete proposed project that when entered into the system, its status or stage will be proposal. A pending project is a historic project or something that's already happening or in planning and design that just isn't in the project tracker yet. So this is how you'll enter the FIP projects from this biennium. It's with the pending projects. And as part of entering a pending project, you can select what stage it's in. So whether it's planning and design or whether it's already started implementation, for example. So I'm going to hop over to the proposals page because there actually is a proposal that's pending approval in the system. And I think I did some projects approvals and updates just to get ready for this demonstration. So the data that you're going to see here and the projects that you're going to see here is test data that's based in reality, but it's not a current reflection of where things are in the production site yet. If I open up the proposals page, I see that there is one proposal that's pending approval. So to review, that's the sign there that's waiting for a review. That's the same for pending projects as well. So if I pull open the pending projects page, That submittal status will show you, okay, we've got one project that's in draft stage. So there's, as an administrator, there's nothing to really do with a draft project. That's still in the hands of the product owner or project sponsor to finish filling out that record and submit it. But there is another one here that's pending approval. So I'm going to pull open the project record here by clicking on the name. And you'll see at the top an alert that this project is pending. Any edits must be made through the workflow. When you're ready to review a pending project, you can go ahead and click the review button that's at the top here. So that will put you into this workflow page, where if I scroll down to the bottom here, you see you have the information about who submitted the update or who created the project, sorry about that, and when they created it. You'll also see the status, so it's pending approval, and then you have these options to approve, return, or reject the pending project. Before you make a final decision, you may want to go through each of the pages and make sure that all of the data that's been entered is correct and complete. For example, you can click on any of these pages that are on the left here to review the information that's being submitted with the project. If you notice that there are things that are wrong, such as typos, or you think that there are other aquatic limiting factors that should be selected, you can go ahead and just make those changes directly to the project before approving it. So you may want to go through all of the pages just to make sure things look correct. And then when you're ready, you can either return the pending project, so that will send a notification to the project primary contact that their project record has been reviewed and more information is needed. You can flat out reject a pending project. I think this will probably be pretty unlikely that you'll be using this, but maybe going forward when we are having proposals submitted through the project tracker, rejection is an option, and that sets the project stage to rejected. But more likely, you're going to be in the position to approve a project. I'm going to go ahead and click approve once I'm ready to do that. And once I've approved that project, this record is no longer a pending project. It's now a full-fledged project in the project tracker that is in the stage planning and design. On that submittal of the approving, it sends an email to the project primary contact. And I want to point out on this page here, I click on the administrative section of a project. This is a whole section of information that is only available to administrators. And the things that you can look at on here are project evaluations, the project update history, if the project has been updated, and system communications. So here we see that when the proposal was submitted, a notification was sent out to Justin, and when the says project update was approved, it's really the project submittal was approved, that another email went out there. I do want to briefly point out project evaluations, which I don't have too much time to cover today, but I do just want to point it out to you. There is built-in support in Project Firma to evaluate a group of projects all at once using the same criteria. And this is very flexible, that you can set up different evaluations. So for example, this might be the FIP 2019-2021 evals with a definition, a status of the evaluation. I think you're either currently in progress with this or completed, and even setting the dates. And so once you've created an evaluation, you can add different metrics that you're going to evaluate all of the projects on. I don't have a ton of time to go into that, but I'm happy to talk about that outside of this meeting with anyone who's interested about how the project evaluations work. Are there any questions about how to review and approve pending projects?
No, I don't think so.
All right. All right, I want to move on to how to approve project updates. So this is slightly different, but also very similar in that it's a same sort of draft, submit, review, approve, or return workflow. But in this case, we're talking specifically about updating an existing project in the project tracker. So you will want your project sponsors or project implementers to periodically update their financials, their metrics, or other information about the projects. To ensure the data quality in the system, updates must be approved before those changes go live in the project tracker. So similar to when a proposal or a pending project is submitted, when an update is submitted, administrators will receive a notification that there's an update ready to review. The email will contain a direct link to that project to review, so you can use that as the navigation. There's also a page under the Manage menu called Manage Project Updates. And this is going to be a great tool for you once you're starting to get project updates, which it sounds like it will be in August, September. So this page has a few different sections. I'm going to focus on the top first. So this is a place where you can configure notifications to go out to project sponsors or project implementers, reminding folks to come in and update their projects. There's also a list of all of the people within the system who will receive notifications. So these are people who have submitted projects and are the project primary contacts for projects in the system already. If I scroll up to the top here, just this nice little alert that there are 4 projects that require an update that don't have a primary contact. So that's telling me that there are 4 projects that no one is going to receive notifications about. You can view which projects those are in this project update status where the primary contact is set to none. So this is, as an administrator, you might want to keep an eye on this to make sure people are associated with projects, and so the notifications get set. Also in this project update status, the first 2 columns here show you the status for the current update reporting period. So any project that has the status submitted, that means there's an update ready to review. So I went ahead and put in a test update here earlier this morning, so we've got something to look at. When you're ready, you can just go ahead and click review right here from the project update status page. I'm going to show you another way to get into the review workflow as well. So if I click on the project name, that's going to pull up the project detail page for the Anderson East Fork Low-Tech Process-Based Restoration Project. You notice this alert at the top here. This says that this project has an update in progress. Changes made through this page will be overwritten when the update is approved. This is an important piece of information to keep in mind. As an administrator, you can change attributes of a project directly from this project detail page. So for example, by clicking this basics editor, I can come in here and I've got more up-to-date information about the completion year. You can just go ahead and change that directly because you are administrators of the system. However, that change will be overwritten if there is an update in progress. So just keep that in mind that when you're changing project records, it's best to do them through the update workflow, although you do have the power to do it directly on the project record. So when you're ready to review an update, you can go ahead and click the review button directly on this page as well. So this workflow looks very similar, and it also looks very similar to reviewing a pending project. You'll see who submitted it. So I did this morning at 10:30, and you've got options to return or approve the update. Before you make a final decision, you will want to review the changes that have taken place. So if you expand all of the sections on the side here, you'll notice that there are a few pages that have this flag icon. And that flag icon is the visual symbol to you to show that when this update was submitted, that's where the changes are. So the project primary contact has changed the basics page, the organizations page, the budget and expenditures. So those are the pages you want to focus your review on, where you can be sure that the watersheds haven't changed. If I open up the basics section, on this page, you have an option to show the changes. So this is a nice little visual difference about what's changed on the project record as part of the update. So in this case, I updated the completion year to be from 2021 to 2022, but all of the other information stayed the same. So you can just be sure that all of the information that isn't changed was previously reviewed because it was reviewed when the project was submitted. So hopefully that will facilitate the update review for you, that you don't have to double check all of the information of every page, just those that have changed. So if you have comments about the update, say I updated the completion year here. If you've got a comment about that, like saying like that the completion year should not have been changed, you can go ahead and add a comment there. It says something like changing year back for some reason. And go ahead and make that change. So you're confident that this was going to be completed in 2021. When you save the page, it will save that change to the update as well as the reviewer comment. And I'm going to go ahead and because I could look at a few of the other pages that have changed here. So here's another one where it added a lead implementing organization. And on the financials, on the expenditures page, I think I've added some financial information as well. Okay, so you can add review comments to any page in the project update review workflow. And I'm going to go ahead and return this update because I want to make sure I run that completion year change by the primary contact of the project. So returning the update will update the note here at the bottom, and it sends an email to the project primary contact. And when that user comes in to review their update, those review comments that I added will be visible to the primary contact or the person who's up here doing the update. So they've got that information right there. I'm going to go ahead and say, no, I was right. I'm making it 2022. And then they can then resubmit the update. So pretend I'm someone else resubmitting the update. So now the project is back in update in progress, and it's ready to review again. So when you're ready to approve a project update, you've reviewed all the sections, you're happy with the changes, and you want those changes to go live, you go ahead and click the Approve button. So what happens after you've hit that Approve button? An email notification is sent to the project primary contact that their update is complete, that there's nothing left for them to do. If I hop down to the bottom of the page here, you'll see that the project history shows not only was the project created, the project was approved, and then it was updated. So a little record is inserted into that visual project timeline. There's now a record in the project update history that corresponds with the update we just approved. And you can view the details of all of the information that changed as part of that update. So there's that same visual difference. And I think that is what I wanted to cover here. Any questions about reviewing a project update? All right, we've got about 10 minutes. So I want to cover just a few other things. Head back to the homepage here. So at the beginning, I pointed out this request support form. The #1 reason users will request support that we've found historically is to request that you add organizations and funding sources. So for example, you've got a project implementer who has some partners that you were unaware of, but they want to make sure that those partners get credit for this project in the project tracker. So you may get an email with the subject, need an organization or funding source added to the list. So how to respond to those requests? From the program info menu here, there's a page for organizations and a page for funding sources. I pull open the organizations page. There's a few things you can do to organizations. You can, as administrators, delete organizations. This will be very rare and can result in data loss, so just do that carefully. You can open up the individual page of an organization and edit any information about it. So, for example, if you know that there is a primary contact for this organization, you can go ahead and select that. Logos, other things like that. Be okay with that. But going back to the list of organizations, there's an option to create a new organization. You're going to see some things on this screen that you don't have access to that have to do with Keystone that I'm seeing because I'm a Sitka administrator. So you can ignore this pull organization from Keystone button, but you will be able to add a new organization just by giving the name, selecting the type of organization. If you know the primary contact and they have an account in the system, you can set that up as well. Optionally add a homepage or a logo. Managing the funding sources is very similar. It's just done from the funding source page. So similarly, you can delete funding sources, but it will be a rare action that you take, and you should make sure that across the board, there are no projects that are using that funding source, or it will result in data loss in the system. You can make changes to the funding source, and you can also create a new one by giving it a name, if you know a description of the funding source. Importantly, all funding sources are related to an organization, so you will need to select which organization is managing that funding source. You can make funding sources inactive. This is probably more likely than deleting the funding source. If you know that there was a grant that was a one-time thing, all of the money was expended from it, and you don't want it to appear in the drop-down list when folks are reporting their expenditures, you can change a funding source to be inactive and it will no longer appear, but all of the data will be maintained in the system. And finally, you can optionally add an amount if there is a cap to a funding source. Any questions about how to manage organizations and funding sources?
Nope, we're good.
Great. Okay, I'm going to show you now just a few things about configuring the project tracker that I think will be handy for you to be able to do on your own. So one thing we've talked about with the steering committee over our weekly or bi-weekly meetings over the last couple months is how to use the project tracker or whether to use the project tracker as that outwardly facing home page for the partnership itself. If you choose to do that, the About menu is completely customizable, and I want to show you how to do that. So from the Manage page, there's an option to manage the About pages. So if I pull that up, right now you'll see that there are those two pages, the John Day Basin Partnership page and the Results Chain Model page. If you want to add another page, you can click the Create button at the top. Let's say, and this is a vanity URL of a funny little term. It controls what's up in the URL. So instead of it being just a random number, if you want an actual URL that is johndaybasinpartnership.org/custom page/meeting notes, go ahead and put in a vanity URL there. And then you have the option about who should be able to see this About page. So here's a handy little field definition. So the status of a custom About page controls whether the page is visible to the public, whether it's protected and only visible for logged in users, or whether it's disabled and not shown at all. So if you select disabled, it just won't show up in the menu anymore, but it will still be in the system. So this allows you just to sort of toggle pages on and off if for some reason you want to turn one off, but then later turn it back on. Protected means it will only be visible to logged in users. For meeting notes, that might be the right choice here. Otherwise, you can choose public. So if I select protected and press save there, so now there's a new page that doesn't have any page content, but you can either edit the content here from selecting edit content. And this is what we call a rich text editor, because you have all of these options for adding bulleted lists, adding special fonts, adding headings, so meeting notes. Let's say we've got 218:20 and 225:20, and you can add notes there. Go ahead and press save. Now on the About menu, there's a new page there called Meeting Notes with those that same text we just added. You can say, oh, well, I didn't really need to add the header because there already is a header. You can also edit directly from this page. The rich text editors can be kind of tricky to use, but they are pretty powerful. You can add images, you can use tables, and all sorts of other fancy symbols, things like that. Any questions about how to use those About pages? All right, a couple more minutes, I'm going to show you some other things. As part of that About page, I pulled up that field definition about what the page status definition was. There are other definitions. So, for example, let me pull up a project page. So if you want to add or change the definitions that appear in these pop-ups, for example, if you've got, let's find one that we might want to change. So for example, this project organization relationship type is a mouthful of words that don't really mean much. As an administrator, you can change what that label says and what its definition is. So to do that, there's this little edit button here, which opens a new page that allows you to change the label to be a custom label. So for example, we might want this one to just say organization type. And once I press save there, I refresh the page here. Now that label just says organization type. So you can do that throughout the whole project tracker to change words to be more in the terminology of your program. So I access that just by clicking the edit button, which is only visible to administrators. Another way you can just manage the funding, or sorry, the field definitions is under the manage menu, labels and definitions. So this will give you a whole list of all of the things that you can customize. As part of the configuration of the project from a project tracker, we've already customized a lot of them for you. So anything with a custom label, sort this. You'll see that we've set up a lot of these already, but if there are others that you want to change, for example, when we added a funding source, there was a field for amount. If there's a different word for the dollar amount related to a funding source that you have, you can change what that label says, and also change the definition that appears in that little pop-up. Questions about those labels and how to manage the terminology in the system?
Nope, I don't think so.
Great. So we've got just about 5 more minutes here, and we do have a hard stop at 1, so we're going to get kicked out of our conference room. I wanted to make sure to leave any time for just overall questions that anyone has about the project tracker, your role as administrators, anything I've covered today.
I have kind of a general question with other maybe groups or project trackers. How many administrators is common? I mean, I'm sure it probably depends on the size of the group, but is there a good number of administrators that other folks have found helpful?
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
I would say probably 2 to 3 or 3 to 4.
Yeah, I would say 3.
3. Like in that case, you always have a backup if someone is on vacation and there needs to be a funding source added. There's always someone else there to do it. So about 3 to 4 is typical.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a really good question.
Yeah. You can add additional people as project stewards, which is another role that can approve projects, but has limited access to the other administrative functions. This was demoing today.
Yeah. Yeah, and Kristen, we had talked about that on the phone, that the project steward role, which is defined in more detail in this quick guide that we'll share with you shortly, may be a more appropriate role for some members of the steering committee, because you get all of the power to do the project review and update review, but none of the complication of having to deal with managing custom labels and those type of things.
About pages.
Yeah. Any other questions? All right. So next week, this time next week, on the 25th, at the full partnership meeting, we're going to do the partner training. So the more the how to use project from a normal user or project sponsor point of view again. And I'm going to try to be there in person for that, but I'll touch base with you, Kristen, about logistics for that.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.